Hey everyone, welcome to today's wisdom healing download. I have opened the Akashic Records and I'm going to be channeling some questions that I wrote down with the Akashic Records. And we're going to be diving into the Akashic Records to just ask the masters, teachers, and loved ones, my ancestors, the ancestors of this land, the ancestors of the earth, and spirit guides to guide us in the various questions that I have today. And the themes are going to be about peace. The themes are going to be about healing and any sort of wisdom that our spirit guides, our master teachers, and loved ones want us to know right now. In addition, we're going to talk about how water is an extremely important part of healing and what purpose it has in our lifetime. We're also going to be diving into the lunar eclipse that's going to happen on March 24th, 25th. Especially if you're in North America, it's going to be directly going through there and part of Mexico as well. So we're definitely going to be feeling it. If you're not feeling it now, which is a week before, it's going to be a really strong season for the eclipse, and usually the eclipses often have a strong signification of transformation, major change in our life, major intense feelings coming up for us during these times. So this wisdom healing downloads with the Akashic Records is really meant for us to receive information, receive wisdom, receive healing from the Akasha, from the Akashic Records, from our higher infinite guidance that is here for us now, that is unseen, and for us to come together in community and for a greater cause and for peace on this planet. And so I'm going to be diving into um, the questions that I wrote for this video, and I'm going to be channeling. So within the channeling that comes through me, a lot of it is visions, a lot of it is imagery, a lot of it is direct clairaudience, like the master teachers and loved ones, the spirit guides, my ancestors, the ancestors of the Akashic Records will share with me directly um, things that they want us to know and things that they want the collective to know, and those watching this video. So again, I want to thank you so much for tuning into this video. Hopefully it helps you in any way, shape, or form. And I know these times are extremely intense and there's a lot moving in this world. There's violence, there's war, there's a lot of things, and there's also at the same time there's a lot of growth, and there's a lot of connection and community that's coming together, and we're sort of holding these two energies, right? These two really intense energies, and the spectrum of life all at the same time. And so we're going to dive into these questions today. So the first question that I have here is, what can we do right now to be best supportive of our health and our wellness? So I'm just going to receive what the Akashic Records want me to know. And the first thing that's coming up is making sure that we start to pay attention. Start to pay attention to what our body is saying. Start to pay attention to how we're feeling when we eat certain foods, when we're watching certain things, when we're having certain conversations with people. Really start to pay attention. When we bring awareness to our experience, this is really what helps us, right? Like life is essentially saying, "Hey, let's wake up, right? Let's start to pay attention to these little feelings, or not little feelings, but these little signs and these nudges and these urges and things that come up for us." And essentially, we're being asked to really start to pay deeper attention to maybe the things that are not being said. And there's this deeper theme of emotional healing that needs to happen right now. There's sort of like a wave coming for emotional healing. And sort of in this generation, in the generation that I'm in, the millennial generation, we sort of were raised in many family structures that didn't have the language for emotions or emotional intimacy or emotional closeness and support. And we were also raised with a lot of stigma around therapy and asking for help and things of this sort. But in fact, we're here to start to pay attention to what our needs are, start to pay attention to these little urges and these whispers and these things that come up for us in the most subtle moments, even. So just pay attention. And oftentimes it's easy to distract ourselves. It's easy to distract ourselves. But when we start to just pay attention to maybe a little whisper that we hear, and we kind of move down that, and we use that essentially to, and if we use that and we follow that thread, essentially something will come up for us. Something will sprout from that place, and it will lead us either to deeper healing or a memory or an experience that needs to be finished and needs to be rewritten or reframed in a certain way for us to show up. And yeah, that's what I'm picking up here. And also, um master teachers and loved ones, is there anything else we need to share about things that are supportive right now for us and our health? What I'm receiving is practices of mindfulness, practices of slowing down and becoming just a little bit more present, even if that feels difficult and there's a lot on our plate and we have really packed, busy schedules. Finding even 1 or 2 minutes throughout the day, some practical things that we can do is just like putting a timer on or an alarm for certain periods of the day. Maybe our energy drops during that time of the day, or maybe we feel like we need to just take a break. Starting to notice that, okay, maybe those times we need to find spaces for ourselves where we can relax and completely come into a place where our nervous system can just relax, and we can just breathe and be with our breathing for even just a minute or 2 minutes. And if not, seeking out and asking questions to other people who maybe inspire you in different ways, and asking them what their process is like. And so cultivating a sort of mindfulness, cultivating spaces where we feel safe enough to express ourselves, maybe express our needs. And I wonder if there's anything else that wants to be shared, any practical tools, because really this information and this wisdom and this healing needs to be built and accessible practically for many of us who are listening, and for many of us who want to apply these things directly in our lifetime. Um, so, right, the master teachers and loved ones want us to start to prioritize our space where we feel safe and where we feel at peace with ourselves, or a sense of calm, right? And it can even be these small moments. Sometimes it's being in the bathroom by yourself, right? Being in the shower, or it's being in nature, going on your nature walk. Maybe it's getting a drink with your friend or getting coffee with your friend. Really, like cultivating these spaces where we feel a sense of connection and calm, and where we can share our vulnerabilities and share our emotions, that feels in some ways vulnerable and cathartic. This also is really indicating reaching out for help, seeing if there's ways that we can speak with a professional or a therapist, especially during times where there's a lot of emotions coming up. Seeing if we can find those safe spaces where we can share vulnerably is really, really important. So we're going to move on to the next question, which is, what can we do personally to support and prioritize peace? And so this goes along with the first question, which is very much about This is very much about, yeah, what I'm receiving is slowing down, presencing yourself, grounding yourself, breathing, coming back into what is in front of me in this moment. It was sort of like I did that. I did that just now where I had to come back into my body. I had to really come back to, okay, what is happening in this very moment? How can I fully show up in this moment? That's what it feels like. The master teachers and the ones that Akashic Records want us to really know right now is how could we prioritize our peace? It's about slowing down, really becoming gentle with ourselves, finding a sort of anchor for ourselves in each moment, whether that anchor is something outside of ourselves, like maybe music or sound, or maybe it can even be a color or an experience that we have that makes us feel a little bit more anchored and grounded and centered in our bodies. This feels like to me a sort of cultivation of earth energy within Chinese medicine. Chinese medicine talks a lot about cultivating our earth energy, cultivating the center of our bodies, which the earth represents. And within Chinese medicine, that relates to our digestive system. So even eating things that are extremely grounding and that are nurturing for our digestive system, taking things like probiotics, prebiotics, fermented foods, even working a lot with the earth, grounding ourselves, going outside, sitting in nature. Other things that came up was essentially gathering your chi. This is another way that we can cultivate more centeredness in our life, is like gathering our chi, gathering, maybe our mind is going this way and maybe we're also thinking about what we're going to eat next. And so gathering all those streams of energy that are like going all over the place sometimes, like bringing it back into our bodies and bringing it back into the here and the now, that takes skill. It's a muscle that we build over time. And what I'm receiving from the Akashic Records is that we want to personally, on a personal level, find those ways that really support us. Something else that is coming up for me is the need to garden, right? The need to like be outside and really put our hands in the dirt and the grass and really feel trees and be with trees and allow ourselves to be with nature. And that is one way that we can start to personally support ourselves and prioritize our peace. Another thing that is coming up about this is start to logically think about ways in our schedules and in our daily lives where we can create spaces of healing, or we can create these experiences of healing, whether it's saying, okay, I'm going to go to this meditation group, or I'm going to um, do the art that I've been wanting to do, that's been in my heart for maybe the last couple months, and buy that canvas and buy the paint and really sit down for an hour and cultivate that practice. That's another thing that can help us move energy and bring ourselves into the moment and cultivate a sort of centering practice for ourselves. Another thing that is coming up is that sometimes we hear about flow and getting into the flow state. Oftentimes, the flow state is occurring because we have all these streams of our chi in the here and now, and it's so focused on this moment. And when we focus our chi and our energy in this moment, it actually expands that moment. And sometimes it feels like time is limitless and time is effortless because our chi is so deeply centered in this moment that nothing else exists. And so we want to sort of cultivate that practice because it centers our energy, because it helps to create a sort of safeness, deeper connection with ourselves and with life at the same time. And if we also can do that in community, even better, right? The next question that I have is related to that question, which is what can we do collectively to support and prioritize peace in the world? And so I'm going to allow this question to just sit for a moment, because it's such a huge question, right? It's the question right now, especially with so much going on in the world, with wars and violence and lots of political, social, cultural, economic change on all levels. And we have to also recognize those things. We also have to acknowledge those things are happening in this lifetime, in our daily life, on the other side of the world. These things are happening, and how can we sit with the tragedies and the things that are really happening right now? Those feelings are extremely difficult. And for me, what's coming through is that what is shared here and the wisdom healing downloads is not a know all be all. It's not a way to say that by doing these things it's going to completely heal and shift those things for you, but by implementing new behaviors, but by slowly changing your frequency in your own life, you begin to ripple that out around you, in your community, in your family, in your friend group, with the people that you work with. And that begins to create this bigger ripple effect into the world. And there is one teacher that I've been learning about recently and from through his books, Thich Nhat Hanh, which was a Buddhist teacher, and he really activated and stood up for peace through his work with Buddhism, and through his teachings and through his education, and the things that he created in his lifetime. And so when we want to collectively support and prioritize peace, we can connect to those teachers and those teachings that do advocate for peace, and do it in a way that aligns with us, that really connects with us. And it's also an experiential thing. When we work with the education of the teachings of a certain lineage or a practice, take note of what we're feeling, like take note of how it makes us feel, take note of what action it inspires in us, and really start to allow those teachings to start to inspire you in what kind of actions and things you want to create in this world, so that we can create this bigger ripple of peace in the world. um, Something else that's coming through is that some of these things that happen just feel so big and feel so overwhelming to our individual nervous systems, right? We have a tendency to feel very overwhelmed and anxiety and oftentimes depression, because we are not able to take action, because we feel a sense of hopelessness and despair and grief, and anger of what's going on. And it's important to say those feelings, and it's important to have spaces where we can genuinely say how we feel and have a sense of it's okay. It's okay, and it's so valid that you have those feelings. It's actually so normal to have those feelings. And there's this big theme of emotional healing right now, and emotional acceptance, and emotional just becoming open to our emotions, and becoming sort of awakened that this is a human experience of having these really deep, intense, oftentimes, sometimes overwhelming emotions. And what the Akashic Records want us to know is that those emotions are okay. Those emotions are valid. And it's about learning how we work with those emotions, learning how we learn from those emotions for us to then change our behaviors, or then to inspire us to take actions, or to follow as a thread to deeper things that maybe happened in this lifetime, or maybe in other lifetimes. And so I want to see if there's anything else that the master teachers and loved ones want us to know about this question. What can we do to support and prioritize peace collectively in this world? Another thing that came up, they work fast, is working with local organizations or even worldwide international organizations to learn and to educate and to contribute your energy. If you do have the necessary tools and resources and time to do those things, then by all means, yes, do those things. It actually will help move the energy of feeling hopeless and often feeling angry, and directing it into action, directing it into, okay, let's honor these emotions. And at the same time, let's also think about, how can I contribute? How can I prioritize peace in the world for not only me, but for all beings? And so this wisdom healing download is for all beings, right? This is in the merit of all beings. This is to benefit all beings. So that way we can live more happy and healthy in our lifetime and for the future generations as well. We're going to dive into some questions about the lunar eclipse that's coming up March 24th. And this lunar eclipse is going to be in Libra. In addition, before this, I dived into the I Ching, which is an ancient divinatory practice created and originated in China. And I came up with the trigram thunder. And this trigram thunder is so much about change. It's so much about sudden awakenings. It's a lot about, oftentimes we fear change, right? We fear the experience of that, like what could happen if X, Y, and Z happened, right? And thunder is about really reorganizing everything. And if you think about, this is most related to the planet Uranus. Uranus is going to be the planet within astrology, the planet of change, the planet of sudden awakenings, the planet of innovation and creativity as well. And using our genius, using our sudden bolts of inspiration and sudden bolts of innovation, and wanting to help people and wanting to liberate, people from, stuckness and things of this sort. Thunder is going to be signifying that within this eclipse season. And so with the lunar eclipse, it's going to be falling in Libra. So if you want to understand how this is going to impact you personally and individually, then you want to actually look at your birth chart and look at what house Libra is in. So this house is essentially going to tell you what area of life that Libra is in, and then also what place the lunar eclipse will be falling in your chart. And so if you have Libra in the ninth house, then that lunar eclipse, that full moon, is going to be in the ninth house. The ninth house is all about publications, it's about travel, it's about foreign cultures, foreign travel, international connections, spirituality often. And if you think about its relation to the sign Sagittarius, Sagittarius is about reaching. It's about going far and sharing your ideals and beliefs far and wide. And so we can often take a look at these different life areas, and we can start to understand where these eclipses will impact in our life. And so there might be a lot of change. There might be a lot of maybe shaking up. And if this also doesn't resonate with you, then take what does and obviously leave what doesn't. Another thing that wants to be said here with the Akashic Records, want to share about the lunar eclipse. Yeah, one thing that is coming up is to find grounding, to find our centering practices, especially during this time where there might be really, really major shifts in the world, collectively. Finding a sense of grounding and finding a sense of also acceptance that we can do what we can in this moment and tomorrow and the next week and this next month. We're responsible for how we react and how we how we take action. And so it's important to, with these next eclipses, to really note and pay attention to what you're feeling, really note and pay attention to your actions that you're taking, and if those are coming directly from a place of and where they're coming from, right? If they're coming from a place of a highly emotional place, if they're coming from a highly analytical place, and learning to find a balance between the two. Like, can we honor our emotions, and then at the same time, can we actually logically, rationally think about what is needed in this moment and what is needed for the next moment? And also, how can we learn from the past to help inform what to do in the future? And so, what the spirit guides of the Akashic Records want us to know about this time is have compassion, have grace, find a place of compassion and grace for yourself and for others, because collectively we each are going through our own individualized transformative experience, and that is okay. And at the same time, that doesn't excuse behaviors. And at the same time, we're humans and we're complex, and we are all going through major changes and transformation. We never really know what another person is going through. So that is really what is coming up right now about the lunar eclipse. I wonder if the spirit guides have any sort of practical tools to help raise our frequency, to help keep us grounded and centered in our bodies and connected to our higher selves in this time. Something that's coming up is I'm seeing an image of flowers, and I'm seeing connecting to like gardens and flowers and beauty. Like, notice the beauty that's in your life right now, whether it's I woke up today and I got to talk to my parents, or I went on a walk and I saw beautiful flowers, or I got to see a hummingbird, or just really connect with those simple the simple goodness of our life. And sort of doing this, you can even cultivate this by having a gratitude list or journal, and writing down what you're grateful for and the things maybe you noticed during the day. One practice that I've been using that comes from Mama Gina, which is, what have you done that you're proud of, and what are you grateful for, and what do you now desire to do with that? What do you desire to do now, and what do you desire in general? And sort of using those three, she calls the Holy Trinity, and using that to raise your own vibration, just connecting with the simple goodness that's around you and in your life, that is you, that is your body. I mean, if you think about it, what I love about Chinese medicine is that it brings your physiology, it brings your body alive with this ancient wisdom that comes from Chinese medicine and the ancestors of Chinese medicine. It's just so incredible what is known about the body and how the body works and how it's interconnected together. This is another thing that's coming up, is that we are relationally connected. And the reason why I'm saying that is because the ancestors and the spirit guides are letting me know that our body is a direct reflection of what is happening outside of us. And oftentimes, our body, if we take it from a perspective of Chinese medicine and what we know about how the body works, is that everything is relational. Our heart is connected to our kidneys, it's connected to our liver, it's connected to our stomach, it's connected all to everything, because our blood is pumped out of our heart into all parts of our body and circulated to provide nourishment, to provide oxygen, to provide an exchange of carbon dioxide. And it's essentially cultivating and creating more life. And if we didn't have our heart, we wouldn't have our life. And vice versa with other organs. Our liver is deeply connected to our kidneys, it's deeply connected to our digestive system and to our heart as well. It's also known as the detoxer. It helps to emulsify fats. And it's such a deep connection to all parts of our body. So everything in our body is so deeply relational. And so when we start to really notice that our body right now is giving us life, that it is supporting us to live life and to breathe and to experience life as a vehicle, it's a miracle, really, to have that realization. And so that's definitely something that wants to come through here, is that even being so aware that your body is a miracle, that all the things, all the processes that are happening in your body, it's incredible, it's a miracle. So let's move on. This is going to dive into the next question, which is, what is the purpose of water in our lives? What role does it have in healing? And this question came up. I opened the records, and this is one of the questions that came up. This is what the spirit guides and the ancestors wanted us to know about right now. So, what is the purpose of water in our life? What role does it have in healing? Well, what I'm receiving is water has such an important role. And we know this from what we learned about it, what we know scientifically about water. Within Chinese medicine, water is essentially a conduit of energy. And we also know this as well, that water holds information, that water has these micro links within it that hold information from years and years, and is very connected to the ancient um, information. And water at the same time helps to cleanse out any information. But at the same time, there is an exchange of nutrients within water. Oftentimes, water can hold electrolytes, it can hold minerals and different nutrients that we need. And at the same time, um, it can also hold particles that don't serve our bodies, like certain toxins and things like this. So we have to know that water is extremely important, and water is sacred, and we have to honor water and its role in our life, and become more aware of, well, how can I start to just notice that water is doing so much for my body, and how I feel when I don't have enough water, and how I feel when I do have a lot of water, or when I feel really hydrated. Just honoring water in your life, and maybe even learning about how water um, creates life, right? We need water to grow plants and grow food and fruits and all of these beautiful things. And so water is an extremely important part of our life. And if water is connected to that, if water is connected to outside of us, if we are farming, if we're gardening, then water is also at the same time doing that for our bodies. It's gardening the inside of our bodies as well. And so this is the role that it has in healing. We can also use water as essentially a tool to help us heal, by either working with water, being informed by water, really connecting with water's essence, and realizing that water is sacred. When we start to bring and put our chi onto that understanding and belief that water is sacred, then things start to come through us about water. And that's where we start to develop a relationship with water. And so let's dive into the other questions. Are there any other practical tools that the ancestors and spirit guides of the Akashic Records want us to know right now? One thing that's coming up is to just hold yourself. Hold yourself. I've been doing that a lot lately, is just holding and just containing my own energy, my own life force, and just holding yourself, because oftentimes that's so much of what our inner child's needed um, during difficult moments, is just to be held and just to be nurtured. And so holding ourselves, activating that energy of compassion and grace for ourselves and forgiveness is really, really important right now. And so the last couple questions that I have here, we're going to just do some just fire off some questions is, what advice is needed right now? How do we surrender to the flow of life when things are difficult, challenging, and intense? One thing that's coming up is ask for help, ask for support from your family, from your friends. Really allow yourself to be vulnerable and allow yourself to be open, and at the same time have compassion, have grace, have practices where you really are able to cultivate a sense of forgiveness for yourself, where you are writing down, like, I forgive myself for, maybe messing up in that conversation. I forgive myself for, you know, um, saying something that I wasn't supposed to say, or really reacting from a strong emotion and things of this sort, like cultivating practices where we can ground ourselves and just have more tolerance for ourselves as humans. And let's see if there's anything else the ancestors and spirit guides of the Akashic Records want us to know. Um, if we're each going through something personally, then have a sort of outlet to put that. Sort of one thing that I do personally is I have a journaling practice. I journal pretty much every day, and that is so healing for me. It's such a sacred act. It's a way for me to just release and have an unfiltered way of doing that. So, just cultivating some sort of practice that allows you to express unfiltered. You don't have to share it with anyone. You don't have to, you don't even have to talk about it, right? You just have to sit with yourself in an honest, transparent place and just share what you're experiencing. And so this is going to be sort of a wrap up of this wisdom healing downloads from the Akashic Records. And I want to thank you so much for joining me, because this is something that has lit me up, and diving into the records and doing intuitive channeling and things like this. So I want to really give thanks for you joining me today. And I do personalized Akashic Records readings. I do share a podcast where I have different healers and practitioners, artists, entrepreneurs come on, called Soul Authentic Podcast. Check that out. And you can find me at drlynlove.com. I'll put the website in the comments below or in the show notes below. And I want to thank you again for joining me on the Wisdom Healing Downloads. I'm going to be sharing more of these. And if you have questions, if you have things, then I'd be happy to also dive into the Akashic Records in these videos, because what you're going through, you are not alone, right? We are all so deeply connected. There is a unified experience that we're all having. And so if you ask your question, then someone else might benefit from that as well. So I want to thank you, everyone. And I want to see if there's any last things that the spirit guides and ancestors of the Akashic Records want us to know. Realize, this is what's coming up, realize that you are a beautiful creation, you are a beautiful flower, and that you are a part of nature. Like our bodies and our minds and just our whole experience, we are a part of it. And so honor that and love yourself and have grace for yourself. That's what wanted to come through. Thank you everyone for joining me today, and I'll catch you on the next Wisdom Healing Download.